You guys good to go? I just want to start out and say it's great to see everybody again. Obviously, heard you guys were able to observe our guys a little bit in the indoor and going through some of their workouts. Getting to see Josh and Tyler's staff, firsthand. They've done an unbelievable job putting together what I think is a great full off-season program. We got a great plan all the way through the 3 phases and just really excited about the foundation of having, all of our football team here and all of our coaches getting around these guys in the meeting rooms and really starting to, activate our systems. And you can talk a lot about, your culture, which we're doing a ton of nowadays, and really building that early on. We're being methodical with how we want to build our systems, but ultimately you got to get out on the grass, and that's what we'll come next week. Really excited about that, and no better place to coach, in my opinion, than on the grass with your players. This phase, the phase 2, really, especially for an early on staff, doing things for the first time, it basically turns into class on the grass in a lot of ways, where we can slow things down, teach, then get some full speed reps on air, get some things against some kind of scouted looks in some of those carded periods where we do it in the walkthrough phase. But ultimately, it's just been great to, get this thing really rolling. The energy in the building is unbelievable with the players all back. I think they feel the energy we're bringing to the table from a coaching staff standpoint. And every single day feels like another big step forward for us as a group. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Kevin, when you talk about trying to build the culture, I guess what things can you put in place sort of from the very jump to send that off in the right direction?
Yeah, to me, you got to lay out your foundational, points for what will, last much longer than just this spring. Hopefully, much longer than this, than this season. Really, I mean, we're looking at a really, a staple coaching point really for all of us, coaches, players, staff, of really looking at it like it's our team, our way, our process. And you guys will see that more and more about around the building. But this idea that it's our team. We're working in conjunction with the players, for the players. They feel that buy-in from us, and they're giving it right back to us. Just the look in our guys' eyes, sitting there, getting to stand in front of the team and talk to them and show them why our way is going to be like that, show why our process will be what it will. I think it starts to make sense from our standpoint to them. I think they get what we're hunting early on here. And then ultimately, like I said, our culture is really our people. And I told the team that. Our culture is our people, and it defines itself on a daily basis. And there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that for all of us, and I hope the guys are feeling that early on in the intent we have every single day of building that.
Kevin, in the offensive workout, we just saw Irv Smith Jr. was just doing work on the side. What's your understanding where he is with his knee, and then moving forward, just your thoughts on having him as part of your offense?
Yeah, I think he's had a great offseason so far, even before coming back here. I think he's been right on schedule with everything that Tyler and the doctors where they want him to be. We're not going to push him, this early on in the off season until we get the green light from the docs, and we'll defer to them and Tyler and Josh, and they're the ones seeing him on a minute to minute basis downstairs right now. We'll make sure that we've got a great plan for Irv all the way through this entire 9-week program. That just puts him in a great position to have a great training camp. That's what I've challenged him to do is, stressing him above the neck, making sure he's learning the systems. He's going to know kind of what to do, where to line up, and then when we start getting those full speed reps for him will be great, and then on into the competitive reps when training camp comes around.
Do you feel you have a handle on the talent after looking at film and getting the guys in here, or is it just too hard until you get into the camp mode?
Well, I think the film tells you a lot. You can really see what individual guys are able to do, what the group collectively in the 3 phases have really been able to do. But for me, it's about looking forward and giving every guy in this roster an opportunity to really, apply what they can do to help us win football games. And collectively as a team, we know how we want to play. We know kind of what our systems are going to look like. But I think the best teams and the best systems in this league can evolve to the strength of whatever that unit may be. And that may be a particular unit, position group, that may be just a phase of the offense or defense or special teams that you want to really emphasize. But no matter how you look at it, it's about doing whatever's best to win football games and compete in our 17 opportunities coming up this season. It's a long way away, but we're building with a mindset, kind of that growth mindset on what we want it to look like, and then teaching these players the why and the how of what we're going to be trying to accomplish.
Coach, you had talked about earlier, like obviously you got to speak with some of the veteran players before they came in and things like that, but just now having everybody in the building and like in the team meetings, what has it been like to just sort of see some of that leadership or the collaboration that you've been talking about early on?
Yeah, I mean, even, I can think to yesterday morning, we were, talking about certain aspects of situational football, and it was very interactive. Players, not only me calling upon them, but guys speaking up and saying some things to add something to the meeting. And when you're with your whole roster and your whole coaching staff, and guys are doing that and they feel like they're, obviously you want them to be engaged, but when that's the starting point, but when you get that collaboration and kind of guys, kind of building this thing and understanding that it is about us and our way of doing things, it provides us with a great opportunity, not only for me to stand in front of them, but for them to, have that dialogue and communication right back to us.
Hey, Kevin, going back to Irv, obviously spent his first few years in a Kubiak playbook. How much of that can translate and what you're going to be asking him to do, and how much is new to him?
Yeah, I think, as far as the verbiage and the terms, all that will be new. But in a lot of ways, when a guy does things well on a football field, you can translate it to really any system, whether it's being a vertical threat down the field, having a role in the run game, all the different ways we marry the run and the pass. I think Irv has the perfect skill set to play a big role in that. And I know he was really going back and watching him. I know he was feeling really, really good before the injury last year. He'd had a really productive camp. And it was obviously a shame that he didn't get to kind of see all that hard work come to fruition in the season. But that's what we're trying to help him do now, get him right back to where he was, if not better, if not stronger. And then obviously it's about the scheme and Irv taking it from there.
Kevin, as you look at team building, I'm wondering what your philosophy is as far as quarterback depth and the type of and experience of quarterbacks you have behind the starter, and are you in favor in general of drafting quarterbacks when your starter's established, or how do you look at that as well?
Yeah, I think every situation is kind of its own thing. That quarterback room, I think we've talked about it before. It's kind of having been in there and knowing how it's a living, breathing thing. Those guys and the chemistry of that quarterback room is really, really important. They spend a lot of time together. They spend a lot of time with Chris and Gerard. So I think when you look at the whole group, obviously you want to feel really good about your starter, which I definitely do, and I know we do as a coaching staff. And then there's a lot to really like in the group, whether it's the experience of Sean in the group. I think Kellen, I'm excited to get on the grass with him, having never been able to coach him before. Get on the grass and really just starting to evaluate where he's at from a technique and fundamental standpoint, his ability to retain the information that we're putting on these guys. And then obviously we've got a young guy as well in Nate Stanley who we really haven't seen a whole lot of. So when you look at that group and the ability of them to kind of grow together, you guys saw the offense itself out there a little bit today. We can't be out there right now in phase one, but that doesn't mean we're not challenging those guys to run our stuff. And if they're throwing routes, throw the things that we're installing and talking about. And the quarterbacks take the lead in that. And Kirk's done a great job with it. You can just feel him absorbing everything we're talking about on a daily basis. But it's the rest of those guys too, because you really want every guy on our roster to feel like they're involved. And how do you do that? As a former backup quarterback myself, you take guys under your wing. It may not be JJ or Adam, but there's a lot of guys that are willing and able and want to out here be working. And I think when you're a quarterback, all you're ever wanting to do is, work on your own craft. But part of playing quarterback is uplifting the other guys in the huddle, and that really starts right now.
With that said, do you think you would look at possibilities in the draft as well, or do you think you guys are kind of set
honestly,
there?
Kwesi and I have talked a lot about it, but I think each situation is its own. It's about where we're at in the draft, the value of each pick, and I would ultimately defer to Kwesi on the draft. But the collaboration that's took place between his group and our group as a coaching staff, I cannot tell you how impressed I've been with not only his leadership, but his whole entire staff and how our draft process has been put together. It's been a lot of fun, just a lot of ways we're just in there talking ball and kind of trying to paint a picture of what our systems require. And then taking a look at these prospects and kind of piecing it all together. So I don't think anything's kind of off the table. I think each draft is kind of its own entity, and you go pick by pick and try to make your team as good as you possibly can.
What's your sense of what you have in Kellen Mond? And did you look at all of him last year in draft? I know you had Stafford and everything. Did you guys look at any quarterbacks? What was your feelings of him coming out last year?
Yeah, I've always – going back to when he came out, you study those guys, and that's why you do it every year. You study those positions, and, as the coordinator, you're really looking at the whole offense as a whole, but you spend time with the position coaches and really, do a deep dive into what they view as, the different depths of each class at each position. But looking at Kellen, I always thought, he was really successful in college, successful from the pocket, creating off schedule. He's got some real athleticism, and I think he's a naturally accurate passer. Now, what will that look like in our offense? That's really up to Kellen and the rest of our guys to kind of make it go. But like I said, I'm just excited to get on the grass with him next week. He's been great in the meeting rooms early on. You feel some leadership from him. You feel some early ownership of what we're kind of putting on those guys. And now it's just a matter of, can you take it from the classroom to the practice field and kind of go from there.
Kevin, to go back to the point about Kirk being able to kind of direct the offense when you guys aren't on the field, how much of an opportunity is this phase of things for him to kind of put his stamp on the offense and take the quarterbacks under the wing or take the receivers to kind of understand how he wants things done?
It's a huge point. It's a great point you mentioned, just because I truly feel like these first 2 weeks are really designed for, obviously in a new system, somebody's got to take charge out there. And for us, that's Kirk. And obviously he's sitting front and center in every meeting. He's asking questions, both in the quarterback room in front of the unit. He was one of the guys that I mentioned in the team meeting yesterday, speaking up and kind of really getting involved. And from everything I'm hearing about what's going on the grass with Josh and Tyler's group out there, he's been great, leading the charge. They're throwing routes. They're doing different things that we're teaching in the classroom. And, I think the phase one is really kind of set up for somebody like Kirk to kind of take the reins and run with it. And then the best thing is we get to start being out there with him next week.
Kevin, game management coordinator, kind of a new term here, new thing. How long has that been on your mind, and kind of in your mind's eye, what do you see that position doing and helping you?
Yeah, I think it's always been on my mind, just going through the process of being part of, the best coaching staffs in those, that I've been around, and obviously, as a player and coach, I just feel like there's a level of dialogue between not only the full staff, but if you really shrink it down to like a Ryan Cordell, who's going to be our game management coordinator, but he's going to work hand in hand with Mike Pettin, who's our assistant head coach, who's been a head coach. He's made some of those decisions before, understands the rules, and we can sit down and really week to week have a dialogue on what it's going to take to win a football game. And from a situational aspect, that's how do you want to play the end of the first half, the end of the game? How do you want to, how aggressive do you want to be depending on what the game flow is going like, but also, who's the quarterback on the other side? How can we manage the game to give ourselves, much like we do on offense and defense in the systems that I want to run here, can we give ourselves that 1 or 2% advantage, whether it is with the clock, down and distance, field position? All those things play into it, and the greatest thing in the world is studying what's going on around the league, studying not only your own team and watching our tape from previous years, but the situations that come up. We have a saying kind of with our situational masters philosophy. We do a meeting with the team every single week throughout the season. We'll do a meeting with the team, and we have a saying: the tape makes itself. You sit down and you watch all the games on a Sunday. You're going to see 5, 6, 7 scenarios come up in a game where you may not have even been thinking about it, or it may not be a page in the playbook, but we better discuss it. We better talk about it, because that could very easily come up, at 12 o'clock tomorrow on a Sunday. And I think that's what, the organic nature of kind of teaching the team and the players in that situational masters meeting exactly what we would do in those situations. It all comes back to clarity. And in those situations, both not only myself as a play caller and the head coach, but Ed, Wes, Matt Daniels on special teams, our coordinators knowing exactly how we're going to handle those situations. And then that trickles all the way down to our position coaches and our players to the point where there may be a decision to make, but once that decision's made, there's very little gray as far as how we're going to execute once that decision's made. And I think that's really important because the more clarity our players can have, the faster they can play, the more decisive they can be, and I think the results will come.
With the draft, what's the most different for you as the head coach? Maybe not only how you spend your time, but just how you're approaching it.
Yeah, it's obviously, that's where I give Kwesi and his staff so much credit for watching just the volume of players and our guys that go out on the road, go into these schools and really get to know the player, their background, get to know the people that have been around the player. You really start to paint a picture of what you may be bringing into your organization. And we've kind of got a standard of what we're looking for to become a Minnesota Viking, both on the field and off. And I think that's really important. But for me personally, it was a lot. It felt like a lot when I was just coaching quarterbacks, and you'd watch, 25 quarterbacks a draft cycle, and then it felt like even more when you were watching every offensive position. And now, across the board, to sit in on all those meetings and hear our coaches talk about the position and how they saw players, and then hear Kwesi talk about how he sees them and his staff sees those players. It paints a picture for me, so when I ultimately turn on the tape and start evaluating the prospects that we're really honing in on, it allows me to have a great chance to kind of feel really, really good about the whole process.
Kevin, Jalen Twyman's back after missing all last season. How's he doing, and what do you kind of see his role with the Vikings?
Yeah, Jalen's doing well, and he's one of those guys that's been really dialed into meetings, and I think across the board he joins a group of a lot of good young players that have a chance to really ascend. And with everything being new here, there's no preset expectations on what a guy can or can't do. So we're going to allow that to play out once we get on the grass, and it'll be a while before we start getting competitive with the reps and things like that. So it's really a learning phase for Jalen and the rest of our guys to know that it's that non-stressful time right now where they can, in a relaxed environment, learn, feel comfortable, and then once ultimately we get on the grass and start building things, we'll progress towards those competitive reps where him, just like everybody else, will get to start competing.
Last beat for Kevin.
Kevin, how does a game management coordinator work on game day? Like 25 seconds left, there's all these people on the headset. Is there a person designed to speak up? And as much as you plan, there's always something that comes up.
Totally, and those guys have to have, I was talking to some of our guys about this week, but the headsets in the NFL, if there could be a real-time feed for that, I think people would probably want to pay a lot of money for that, because it could be interesting at times. There's no doubt, but you got to have some organization to it. The situational guys need to know that they've got the green light at all times, especially in my ear. Mainly when we're on offense, and I'm obviously the offensive play caller, but when we're on defense or it's during a TV timeout, how far out in front of those situations can we get so it doesn't have to be so reactionary in the moment? But ultimately those situations are going to come as well, and that's why you prepare yourself with that dialogue throughout the week and leading up to the game, where we know how we want to play the game. So let's fit our decision making with that and in that mold until, then the ball gets kicked off, and we might have to adjust that in real time to give ourselves the best chance to win. It's ultimately, whether it's the first play of the game, it's a 2-minute drive at the end of the half, or you're trying to go win the game or hold on to a lead in the fourth quarter. It's constantly evolving. You practice all those scenarios, and then, like I said, the goal is clarity for the players, and making sure that we have a good process to coming up with those decisions. But there's no question there's some times where it can somewhat feel chaotic, but that's my job to make sure that chaos never gets to the players and they feel ultimate clarity and as much of a relaxed, poised demeanor as possible when it matters.
Saw Daniil Hunter out there a little bit this morning.
Yeah.
What kind of a plan do you have for him this spring, just getting him ramped up back from that injury?
Yeah, I think he's learning a new defense. He's learning ultimately how he's going to fit, which he's going to be a major factor in everything we do, both against the run and the pass. I think our guys are really starting to see the versatility at which we can play with, even early on as Ed's kind of installing his defense. But Daniil's, I know he's fired up. He looks great. he's moving around great, and ultimately that'll be another guy that I'll be keeping a close eye on when we get on the grass next week. But there's so many guys I'm excited about. Our whole team, just having such a good feeling in the building right now. It means a lot that our players are committed to being here. And then ultimately in a voluntary time like our off season is, when we do that, get that kind of turnout, I'm challenging the coaches every single day to make sure that we're getting the most out of it. But these players are leaving here every day excited about coming back the next day. So thank you guys.
All right, thanks.